But trees actually communicate with each other through the roots under the ground, through mycelium. And so they work as a community, and they need different species and different ages, and in order to thrive. And that's actually another thing that's really interesting about trees, is if you cut one down, it actually doesn't kill the tree, because the other trees around it are going to be feeding it and nurturing it in order to keep it alive, so that the other trees can have access to its information. And so they really nurture each other and work as a community. And so through my work, community and kind of bringing people together in harmony and celebrating the diversity of our world and our culture is another huge aspect to my work. So I'm going to start my presentation, and then I think you'll understand a little bit more what I'm talking about. So I'm going to share my screen. And so I kind of wanted to start here. I don't know if you all have ever seen these images, but this is in Mexico, in the Michoacan forest. And the reason why I wanted to start my story here is because this is the reason why I started to make trees. As a foreigner and moving out around a lot, and then I also come from Oklahoma, which this butterfly migrates through Oklahoma to go down into Mexico to meet their community. And I started to kind of question my migration path and why I was migrating, and also, again, thinking about the book object as this kind of environment. And it also looks like a butterfly. And so I started to research a lot about this monarch. And actually, the monarchs don't fly together. So they, from their instinct, go all the way to this Michoacan forest and find each other there. And they don't have the same migration path. How do they know? They have the longest migration in the world. And how do they know how to get there and to join together? That's the beauty and the mystery of nature. And so I was really inspired by this and decided to go. And so I went, and I made a film, and I actually danced with the monarch butterflies, and it was a beautiful experience. And while I was there, I was working with some biologists, and I tried to ask, what is it about these trees that brings these monarchs here every year? And they actually don't know. They're just pine trees. But there's something about this forest that brings them back every year. And so I thought, wow, that's super interesting. These trees kind of contain this story, this magical story, or these secrets. And I wanted to tell this story. And trees are one of the oldest beings on our planet. And when we cut a tree in half, we see actually the tree rings that not only tell the age of the tree, but also if we look closely, we can see if the tree has been touched by pollution. For example, if there has been a lot of radiation, the trees actually, the rings start to look a lot darker starting the year that it was touched by the radiation. If there were too many insects, if there was a drought, all of that is written in the language of nature through these tree rings. So that's kind of where my whole story started. And then I started making trees. So I'm going to focus really on one project today because there are so many. If I have time at the end, I'm going to show you my portfolio so that you can see some of the other installation work that I've done. But I'm starting here. This is the Grand Palais. This is for the largest summit for climate change called Change Now, that was in Paris in 2020. But yeah, I wanted to start here to kind of show you one other image of a work that I've created. So this is all made out of recycled books. So I'm asking the community to donate books. And so not only does the book come back to its natural source and re-become a tree to tell a new story, but it also is kind of a social portrait of all the people that have donated the books, and then all the content that is written within as well. I kind of wanted to show you close-ups of these roots because this is really just rolled paper with glue. But I wanted to show this to you because roots are such an important symbol in my work. Roots are, again, what help the trees communicate together. It's through these root systems and with the mycelium. And the picture on the left is actually a different installation. If we have time, I'll show it to you. That I created that was kind of like the interior of a body and also the body of a tree. So it's kind of like veins and it's kind of like tree roots. So really in my work, I'm trying to bring together the idea of humanity and nature, and that we're all one. We're also a part of nature. So not only is the paper becoming a tree again, but it's also showing that we are a part of this and that we must be more respectful. This project was in Italy, but I just wanted to show you an overview of the tree ring. So this is really my signature, I would say. Again, allowing nature to tell its story and then kind of inserting our culture within and showing us that we are a part of this. We must be more respectful. When we're walking through a forest, maybe we don't understand all the stories that are contained within the trees, but we must be respectful of them. And each tree has its own story. And so in that sense, a forest is like a living, breathing library. I also wanted to talk just to you a little bit about the fact that I open my practice to the community around me. There are moments, of course, when I'm working alone, but every installation, not only can people come and donate books, but they can also come and participate in the work. So it's bringing the community together and it's allowing us to be more aware of nature and our place within nature. We're touching the pages. We are speaking about natural things. And I love too that we can bring together people who are from very different political backgrounds or cultural backgrounds and here within this space. Time is slowed down. We're here working in the time of nature. I don't know if you can see here, but people are gluing page by page. It's a very long process, but I also want people to participate so that they can be a part and understand that it takes a really long time for a tree to grow and that we must be respectful of that. So it's a way to slow down and kind of be in that neutral space, that beautiful space in the time of nature. I'm going to go ahead and start talking about Symfolia. That was my last monumental installation for the cultural program for the Olympics in Paris this summer. So Symfolia, sim is the root word for together, actually. And also it's the beginning of the word symphony. So music, and music as a universal language. And as we know, when we walk through a forest, there's definitely a symphony that happens. And actually sound is very much a way that nature communicates together, both with sound and vibrations. So that's another reason why I wanted to put this symbol of music within this work. And then folia, it's the root word for feuille in French means paper. So it can mean paper, but it also means tree leaf. And then it's also craziness, the root word for crazy. So that's why I kind of created this word Symfolia. So this is the kind of preparation drawing for the work. I'm going to go through and talk to you about it, but each one of these tree rings, it represents a different continent of the world and paired with a musical instrument family. So there are different notions of landscape, of cultural identity, of different types of plants, of different types of artisanal techniques that we can find there. And so it's kind of telling the story, and it's all assembled with the same root system. And therefore, this installation actually represents one of the largest trees in the world. So let's get started. So Symfolia, you can actually see, this is a picture of my father. So you can see the size. It's about 15 meters tall. And all of these origamis that are on the tree represent the monarch butterflies that I showed you in the beginning. So it's about the community coming together, celebrating in harmony. And actually, all of these origamis were folded by 10,000 children and youth that I worked with. I did workshops and they all were invited. So it's all about sharing my artistic vision with these different groups, talking to them about the migration of the monarch butterfly, the beauty of nature, why we should be preserving it. And then each one of them gets to fold a different origami and be a part of the work in the end. I'm going to kind of show you this. It's a 1-minute teaser so that you can see the installation as a whole, because it's quite large and through photos it's hard to see. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start talking a little bit about it. And this is where we're going to kind of dive into the different references to different plants and trees that I used. I'm actually from the south of the United States, as I told you. And so I was very used to seeing not only the monarchs, but also these trees with hanging moss that's here on the top right. And so I wanted to recreate that. And so here in the installation, I took horsehair that's on violin that they use to have the violin strings. So it's old recycled horsehair, and also thread that we use to sew books together. So it's about the books taking apart their old story and creating a new story together through the different voices of the community. So here, all of this horsehair and the thread that is used to sew the books is here, kind of representing this tree from the south of the United States, the hanging moss. I just wanted to show you a picture of the studio when the work was in progress. These are the kind of rolls that we were making and roots, and I wanted to show that to you because these different rolls, it kind of represents the scroll, which is the first type of book that was created. So not only is the paper going back to its natural source, but it's telling this very ancient story that we must be more conscious of and listen to. And I told you about the origamis that were all folded by the 10,000 children that I did workshops with. And then I wanted to talk to you about these different second generation trees. So during the project, I went to Japan to do a different installation, and I went to Yakushima, which is an island that has a gorgeous forest and has one of the oldest trees in the world, which actually, unfortunately, 2 months ago, it got destroyed from a tsunami, but I was able to have the honor to see this tree before it was destroyed. And actually in this forest, they used to be taxed with rice in each city in Japan. And in Yakushima, the climate was not adapted to making to growing rice. And so they were cutting the trees And yeah, I wanted to show you this. These are some trees from my hike in the forest. And so they were cutting the trees. And then 300 years ago, people started to realize that this is a very sacred forest. This is a very important forest. We need to stop cutting the trees down. And so now it's protected. But you can see that there are so many second generation trees. And this is what shows you the power of nature. Again, it doesn't mean that when we cut a tree down, it's going to die. The forest around, the community around is going to keep it alive. And so it's regenerating. And so it shows that nature is stronger than us. And so I wanted to put these second generation trees in. So I'll try to move this in the installation to show the power of nature and to talk about our role in helping reverse the damage that we've done to our earth. So I have a lot of references to butterflies and to insects within my work because I talk a lot about metamorphosis as the book is coming back to its natural source. So these are actually all insects and mushrooms that are from my childhood that I collected with my family. So there's a very personal story within the installation as well. I kind of wanted to tell you just a little bit about the microscopic and the cosmic aspect of my work as I'm going page by page, but then there's something of it being really massive, which is such an important part of nature as well. We've got the microscopic details and the fragileness of, for example, a leaf. And then we have the massive body of the tree. So I think in my work, I like to experience that, something that's very delicate and small and tedious, and then also something that's larger than me. I find that it can feel closer to nature that way. I never changed the color of the books. I must respect the nature of each book, so I never put any type of color. And so I'm always seeking out books with different colors. And in the 1970s, they made a lot of books like this. So everything that you're going to see today is made with the natural color of the books, which means that I'm working with light and time, because it's the light and the time that are going to make the colors of the page look darker or more white.
Rachel, you have 1 minute left.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Okay, I'm very sorry. Let me just go through and show you some images then, because so these are the different tree rings. This represents the Americas and the string instrument family. These are some of the references that I wanted to show you. This is the Asian continent and the Horn family. And these are some references to that. I was very influenced by the volcanoes in Japan and the idea of Shinrin Yoku. This is Africa and the piano family. These were some of the references. This is the oceanic continent and the percussion instrument family. These were some of the references from that as well. And then this is the final continent, the Europe and the wind instrument family, and then some of the references from that. And then here's the very end of the installation. So I'm sure we'll have a lot of questions because I went through everything quite quickly, but I really appreciate you listening, and thank you so much for the invitation to speak about my work.
Yes, thanks very much, Rachel, for a very detailed and rich presentation. And as you say, I'm sure there'll be a lot of interest. Let's wait and see what the questions are that come. All right, let's continue on with our second speaker this afternoon, who is Christa Sommerer, who is an internationally renowned media artist, researcher and pioneer of interactive art, whose work often involves plants as participants, together with Laurent Mignonneau. She has created around 14 sensitive artworks, shown in around 350 international exhibitions. And this afternoon, Christa joins us from Austria. So we're very glad you're here, Christa, and welcome. I'll hand the floor over to you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Francis, for inviting me here. Also, thank you to Gautam and John Ryan. It's a big pleasure to be here. And also, thank you to my guest, other speakers, Rachel and Mauricio. It's really an honor to be here. I want to also show you a little bit about art and botany, art and plants. And the title of my talk is From Botany to Art Studying, Seeing and Interacting with Plants. And I'm also speaking on behalf of Laurent Mignonneau, who together with me is professor at the Interface Cultures Institute at the University of Art in Linz in Austria. The structure of my talk is I want to briefly talk about plant blindness, plant sensitivity, and plant intelligence, then go over to botanical illustration, and then show you some botanical motifs in my own personal artworks, followed by a short summary. Plant blindness is a topic that I found actually before even I knew that term. I was already interested in plant blindness, but I recently discovered actually also through the books of John Ryan that this term plant blindness was created by Wandersee and Schussler in around a couple of years ago, where they analyze that we are now having this misguided anthropocentric ranking of plants as inferior to animals. And this leads to the erroneous conclusion that plants are unworthy of human consideration. They describe this as plant blindness, which is, according to them, the inability to see or notice plants in one's own environment, which also leads to the inability to recognize the importance of plants in the biosphere and also in human affairs. And also not only to not regard the plants as important, but also the inability to appreciate the aesthetic and unique biological features of plants. Monica Galliano, which I had the pleasure to also be on a panel with her, also says that this plant blindness is also linked to a re-evaluation of our attention to the vegetal world that we need. As we all know, plants are very crucial in ensuring the continuity of life on Earth. But when we go to plant sensitivity, or this idea of taking more care about plants, it's actually not such a new concept. Already in 1600, the great botanist Thomas Brown pointed out that plants possess this ability to react to the environment. And he already was one of the first to establish this theory of plant sensitivity. And later, of course, nowadays, people like Stefano Mancuso and others show us that plants have this very specific way of reacting to their neighbors. And I think Rachel also showed us very well now with her presentation about trees, that they can communicate with chemicals and sounds, and that there's a lot of information exchanges going on within the plant, but also among the plants and their neighbor plants. And all this is now being studied much more in the botanical community. And some people like Mancuso even call this plant intelligence, which is, as far as I know, still disputed in the botanical community. However, there's more understanding now that plants are, in a way, intelligent, that they communicate between each other, they communicate to the physical environment, they also communicate to insects, and that from these studies, these plant physiological studies, we can also learn to solve ecological problems that we are facing now. When we come to art and plants, we know that depiction of plants have a very long tradition already. The Greeks, but even earlier in Mesopotamic culture, we find depiction of plants, illustration of plants, and already back then artists and designers started to pay attention to these plants and trying to integrate them in vases, murals, objects, and even garments. And a way to study plant is, of course, by observation. And by so maybe I can get rid of this, by observation of plants, and also by drawing the plants. And to study the plants was, of course, very important in the Middle Ages, mostly in plant medicine, when nuns such as Hildegard von Bingen, a German abbess, philosopher, writer, composer, and medical expert, studied plants and also described their medicinal powers. And Hildegard von Bingen is very interesting because she already talked about this special subtlety of plants, which she calls viriditas, a very beautiful term that shows the power of life within a plant. Then later systematic depiction of plants appeared in the 17th century. Botanists such as John Ray developed the botanical method, which introduced the concept of species. And of course, later Carl Linnaeus, a very important botanist, started to create this modern system of botanical classification and the botanical taxonomy. Let me now switch, before I go to our own work, maybe I want to show you a little bit about botanical illustration, which was a very booming field in the 1700s, where botanists began to draw plants in a very scientific and a very detailed way. And one such good example is Maria Sibylle Merian, a German-born naturalist and scientific illustrator, who already, I find, very beautifully shows us the interaction between plants and insects in her very detailed and very fine botanical illustrations. Another very inspiring artist and scientist for me is Ernst Haeckel. He was a botanical illustrator, but also an artist and scientist. And he shows us in his drawings not only very accurate drawing, but also a lot of fantasy and imagination. When I talk about my background, I originally studied botany and anthropology in Vienna at the university, and already during my botanical studies, I was very inspired by drawing plants. And besides trying to make them as accurate as possible, as scientific as possible, I also had this wish of talking more about artistic qualities and plant morphologies, and trying to somehow also document the creative inventiveness of nature. This finally led me actually to study art and modern sculpture a couple of years later. And to no surprise, I started to integrate botanical motifs in my own art practice, which was around sculptures, drawings, reliefs. And I started to create my own art and botany heuristics, which I called Philologia and Iconophila, taking the leaf classification schemes of Carl von Linnaeus to create leaf shapes, but in a very abstracted, in a very artistic manner, such as in these reliefs or in this metal sculpture that you see here to the right-hand side. Finally, all came together when I met the French artist Laurent Mignonneau in 1992, and we started to collaborate and create interactive installations together. The first project that we did was called Interactive Plant Growing, and I think here you see very well how plant and art are coming together. In this installation, people can touch real plants that are presented on pedestals. And when they do this, the interface that Laurent constructed can detect the human presence, which is basically treating the tension difference between the human and the actual plant as a sort of antenna that captures the body voltage of a visitor and then takes this data that we can capture and lead it or link it to the growing parameters of artificial plants. And you see here a plant touching a fern, and then a similar looking fern can grow on the screen. And by linking real plants to artificial plants and making this interaction exchange between the human and the plant visible in the form of artificial growth on the screen, we could create virtual gardens that are constantly different and always change. They're never repeatable. It's a kind of unrepeatable, unique image that grows on the screen. And we have been showing this work since 1992, constantly actually. And what's fascinating to us is see how people are very fascinated by this idea of interacting with a real plant and then see this transformed on a screen and see this transformation of their interaction in the form of a virtual garden. I show you here an example of such kind of screen that develops. And depending on how people touch the real plants, this garden always is different. Maybe there's more moss, maybe there's more ferns, maybe there are more ivies. So basically a transformation of this growing that constantly new. And here we see an example of a recent big retrospective exhibition we had in Azcuna Centro in Bilbao, where you see people trying to see and understand what's happening when they touch the real plants and see this transformed on the screen. Or here another short snapshot. Here maybe a very quick movie where we see a person touching this ananas tree or a small bonsai tree, and then seeing some similar plants growing on the large projection screen. And even though this work is quite historic already, it's from 1992, we still continue to show it. And actually I always get similar reaction that people tell us, wow, it's amazing. I always knew plants are sensitive. I always knew plants have some feelings. So there's a lot of thinking and a lot of things that touch people when we present this installation. I show you two more works quickly. Another one that we did when we lived already in Japan was from 1996, Transplant. Here our idea was to incorporate people in the virtual garden and link the movement of people when they are in a kind of space to the growing of virtual plants that surround them. We developed a special camera tracking interface, which I don't have the time now to go into it. But this is also a work that's quite historic. And we see here the Metropolitan Museum of Photography in Tokyo, where we see Laurent now entering a space. Maybe I skipped the sound. We see Laurent walking here, and he grows plants with his body movement. And as he walks, he fills up the screen more and more and starts to be integrated in the virtual garden. And I just want to remind you, this is from 96. So of course the graphics back then was not so easy to make very complicated graphics, but the whole idea of interaction with virtual plants is something that I would like to show you here. And the next work I want to present to you, the last project I want to present to you, was also created in Japan when we lived there. It was called Eau de Jardin. Here we reused this idea of plants that people can touch or interact with, but this time with a very large white screen that was inspired by the Sea Roses of Monet, which is shown in Paris. And in this case, we have 3 large projection screens that are connected to each other and 8 plants that hang from the ceiling. And as people touch the peace lily, the fern, or the acapanthus, they can grow similar plants on the large projection screen. This time you have a top view, so the plants that are fresh are always growing in the front. And as time goes, they are fading into the background. And you have this continuous garden of new plants that are growing according to the interaction of people. And again, here, this collaborative aspect is very important for us, that several people in the installation together create this virtual garden, which is changing and is also a representation of how people engage sensitively with the real plants and how they basically also collaborate with others. This brings me slowly to an end. Maybe 2 more slides. This is from the large retrospective exhibition that we had recently shown at CKM in Karlsruhe, in Linz, OK Center, in Bilbao, and also in Imal in Brussels. There's also a beautiful book that came out 2 years ago with all our artworks from the last 30 years, published at MIT Press. And just a small side note, after 30 plus years of practicing in media art, I also recently restarted to engage in botanical illustration. And I started it mostly during the lockdown. And it really helped me also to study plants in more detail, their morphology, their inner principles. And as you know, or people who did this or do this, you have to be very patient because the plant itself during the day is changing constantly. And if you draw it, or in this case, aquarelle, you have to make an approximation between what you see and also what you want to artistically interpret. And going back to this idea of plant blindness, for me personally, it helps me to see plants. And this brings me to the end. When we talk about this idea of plant blindness, we want to propose that through art, we can have a deeper appreciation for plants. We can take the time to see and study them. It can be, of course, very rewarding. And especially in terms of environmental challenges, I think it's really needed that we are more aware of the importance of plants, that we see them, and through art that features plants and human-plant interactions, we hope to sensibilize the people for this fascinating world of the vegetal kingdom. These are my contacts, but I can post them later, and I would like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Christa, for an absolutely fascinating presentation. And I'm sure there'll be questions for those people that have just joined us or joined a little bit late. If you do have any questions, please, for any of our speakers, feel free to put them in the chat, where we can, when our final speaker, Mauricio, has finished in about 20 minutes, we can answer them. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Mauricio Tolosa, whose presentation is called Resonate with the Plantae Kingdom Co-Creative Practices and Co-Creative Practices to Mend Bonds with Kingdom Plantae. Mauricio was born in the Chilean Patagonia. He is an author, writer, photographer, communicologist and gardener who has been creating with plants for the last decade. Mauricio shares his discoveries through books, poetry, videos, workshops and conferences. His work focuses on mending bonds with Kingdom Plantae and reintegrating humans into the fabric of life. And this afternoon he's joining us from Paris. So great to have you with us, Mauricio. I'll hand the floor over to you for the next 20 minutes. And can you unmute for us?
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. Thank you, Francis. It's I'm well with the presentations of Christa and Rachel. It's such an amazing work from different perspectives. So inspiring. I really thank them for the work and sharing it with us. And thank you and John and Gautam for organizing this amazing, not only this session, because I have had the lucky to be in all the seminar or many of the sessions of the seminar, and it's always so inspiring from very different perspectives. So thank you very much to all this. And I also would like to start my presentation thanking some of the plants that I have worked with, who have guided me on this incredible journey to the Kingdom Plantae. In my presentation, I will tell you about a journey that began with the invitation of a Japanese crab apple, with whom I spent more than 5 years, almost every day, contemplating, meditating, observing, and astonishing myself. It all started with the impressive barks, which suddenly showed colors and forms so beautiful and unusual that I doubted what I was seeing. To calm my rational mind, I recorded what I perceived in writing and photography, Those notes became texts, and one of them was a short essay published in The Mind of Plants, a book conceived and edited by Monica Gagliano, John Ryan, and Patricia Vieira, and later a book, My Master the Crab Apple, published in Spain. My journey with the crab apple was guided by amazement, admiration, and beauty. I had no scientific, creative, or search purpose. I was not trying to heal, explain, or find spiritual answers. However, all that happened. The journey with the crab apple changed my life in many ways. It was the portal to the kingdom plantae. Previously to this journey, I was an international consultant in communication among humans. I have published several books and done a couple of photography exhibitions. I was interested in spirituality and have practiced sitting meditation for 30 years. I was a standard gardener, sensitive to the plants, but not even imagining that it was possible to communicate with them. And I am from Latin America. Being a Latin American influenced my journey. Forests, trees, and plants are majestic on the continent. The native cultures have a profound relationship with them. They consider plants as equal living beings inhabited by animals with whom they communicate. Another reason, not that beautiful, is the sad connotation of the New World, as America was called. The discovery of the New World by the Europeans meant almost the extinction of people and cultures and a way of relating to the earth, nature, and animals. It was a perspective of superiority and contempt. The others, humans, plants, or rivers, were considered a resource to exploit or use for their own benefit. The New World was framed and classified in the old categories of the European ideas. That approach made them blind to the new, and they lost the possibility to really expand their world. So, when I felt I was entering the kingdom plantae, my primary concern was how to do something different. I asked myself, what language, what tools, what methods to explore this new world? How can we avoid anthropocentric practices and beliefs that reduce the kingdom plantae to our definitions of intelligence, individuals, or learning? I wanted to explore the possibility of a shared world. Some co-creative practices came to me. I dedicated daily hours to contemplation, particularly with the crab apple adjusting to the plant's time. The practice of haiku, a traditional Japanese poetry, also emphasized a deep connection with nature and the present. Qigong, a millennia-old Chinese practice, focused on energy and breathing. Concentrating on plants and trees, it can foster a subtle bond with the natural world. Also, I ingest different plants. Taking herbs and plant infusions, eating, smelling, or smoking them became a conscious way of forming a relation. With these constant daily practices, some things started to arborize in me. My senses started to expand and became more sensible. I could see or even hear a flower opening. The smells became palpable, making a plant through fragrance as real as it is through color or form. Sometimes I could perceive the energy or vibration of a tree. As moving beings, from one place to another, we have a deep sense of here, but plants are in the same place all their life. They change with time, with the now. We must join them in their time, slowness, cycles, and rhythms to enter the dynamic plant's world. These practices dissolve the separation between my human world and the plant world, and my internal divisions. The mind, the brain, the heart, and the body were working together. Most of my work will come from that fusion with the plants. Often, the decision to write or make a photograph or a garden will come first from a signal or a call from the plant. Decades ago, Luis Eduardo Luna rescued the concept of teacher plant in his work as an anthropologist in the Amazonas. Among the many extraordinary plants I have encountered, 3 have been evident teachers' plants to me. I want to recognize them here: crabapple, kapi, and ololiuki. How does that relationship happen? I will share 2 central concepts in my co-creative relationship with the plants: resonance and synchrony. German sociologist Herbert Rosa developed resonance. He described the relationship with a person, a sunset, or a plant without expectations or search for benefit, but where you are open to being changed or deeply affected by that interaction. Synchronies are extraordinary coincidences that show through embodied concepts, emotion or perception, dreams, aromas, birds or insects, or magic encounters. When they happen, there is a body feeling, a heart certitude, and a mental amazement. The kingdom plantae is a realm with relations, rules, time, spirits, and inhabitants, the way of a co-emergency of the plants. I wonder what forms of language will be adequate to share and invite others, preserving the freedom of mind and heart to keep exploring. The poetic and artistic language seem more resonant. It opened questions more than closing and fixing answers. I wrote a book about my master the crabapple and other poetic texts. I made a short haiku video that was shown at many festivals related to nature and literature. I conducted creative workshops to invite people to explore the kingdom plantae and did presentations and conferences to share my enthusiasm for the encounter between species. However, the best way to deepen the relationship with the plant is to be with them. Flowering is the most communicative moment of plant. When they transform and expand their presence through the fragrances, shine with vibrant colors, or adopt fantastic forms to attract other species that come to them almost as hypnotized. At the beginning of the last century, Dr. Bach developed a method to capture the vibration of the flowers through solarization. I have used that method with more than 60 plants. The collection process is joyful, poetic, and artistic. Each essence you can co-create is a poem of a plant. Then, exploring the effects requires subtle attention, almost dieting in the Amazonian way. Plants interact differently. Some are more emotional, physical, or spiritual. Some relax and others activate. Some facilitate connecting with other plants or animals, and others enhance dreams, concentration, or creativity. One helps in the healing of traumas and the other helps in the recovery. A garden grows inside you with all the plants you have bonded. The resonant garden is another way to co-create with the plants. It is an evolving installation where you participate with the plants without imposing human language. You enter in their world, time, aromas, and network. In the beginning, you need to sense the space and honor the plants already there, often trees, which will be the natural protectors and support of the garden. Trees will also play a role in concentrating the aromas of the garden, which is a vital part of the interaction. Then you search and let the plants come. The resonant garden is to be sensed and lived, so you create paths and seeds to immerse yourself in. And it is not only about what you can see and feel on the surface, on the air. On the surface network, there are the terpenes and other molecules that change according to season. But underground, another network starts growing through the roots, the mycorrhiza, and the bacteria and microorganisms of the soil. Being in a resonant garden is like being in a cocoon of the plant network. The resonant garden is a magnificent opportunity to co-create with the plants in the complexity of different approaches. It is a place to work and experiment and observe the interactions between the plants and yourself. It is also an entry to the kingdom plantae. Not only the garden itself, but a sort of entry point to the surrounding network of plants. It is a workshop. You are inspired to create, write, photograph, or paint. It is an art installation. And it is a sacred space where you mend the bond with plants and life. The garden is a prominent space for the interaction between humans and the plant world, and a privileged space to witness the crosses between those worlds through synchronous. The Resonant Garden is a continuously changing art installation inspired by life. To finish, I would like to share a beautiful concept I learned in my conversations with Marisela, a Machi from the Mapuche people of the south of Chile. Epumpule. It is a concept that means giving in both ways, and it is applied to the relationship between all beings and spirits. In a more Western approach, it could be reciprocity. Keeping that in mind helps create respectful and generous relations with this fantastic kingdom plantae that is calling us. Thank you very much for listening to me, and all my gratitude.
Thank you very much, Mauricio. What a very, very interesting presentation. Thank you to all our three speakers for their content this afternoon, which is certainly touched something very deep inside all of us, I think. So I'd like to now come to the part where we open it up for questions and any comments or feedback. And I believe Gautam will have a look in the chat to see if there's anything there. I think there was already one question from Rachel there.
Yes. Thank you, Rachel, for your nice question. Yes, that's a good question. We wanted to have plants that grow in a different form. Like, for example, the fern would occupy a lot of space. The ivy would be something that is more like, invading the space in kind of 3D. Then the moss would be something that is growing more on the soil. And then we had also trees. So we tried to find different type of growing patterns. And then we choose also real plants that would be not too fragile. So this was also something that we wanted to find out, because people, we tell people, please touch very carefully, or you don't even have to touch, you just have to come near them. But some people get so into it and they are so enthusiastic that they press the more it grows. So often we had to tell people, please slow down, it's enough if you're just present. And so this was also a consideration to find plants that are not too sensitive, but on the other hand also are able to capture the voltage differences between the human body and the plant's own voltage. So yeah, that would be the short answer.
Do you mind if I ask, was it based also on the energy of the person or the way the person was interacting with the plant?
Yes, it's definitely also, it depends on the body size. It depends also what kind of clothes you're wearing. Maybe if you wear more like, nylon clothes, then you are very charged and you might even, make the growth very fast. Then also we experienced, for example, people, at the first time we showed it, it was actually in Finland at Otsu Gallery in Turku. And we didn't know it back then. There was a person coming in a wheelchair, and he exploded our interface because apparently he was not grounded. And we didn't know at the beginning that a person in a wheelchair would have so much charges that our interface was actually going completely crazy and we had to repair it. So there was a lot of experimentation also to find out the right tuning and the right kind of adjustments of our interfaces. And since we have now shown it almost 32 years constantly, we have somehow a good experience of what kind of adjustment and what kind of, presentation works well. But every person is different. If we are like plants, actually, we have different charges. And I think that's what Mauricio also showed so well, that, we have actually a lot of connections to plants. It's just our timing is very different. But in fact, we are living beings and plants are living beings. So there is a lot of connections.
I think that we all saw that in my work, both of these things are very important as I'm inviting the community to be a part of the work. So reciprocity is something that is kind of about community building and community building, a message about sustainability. So I think the two terms kind of coexist in my work.
I don't know if I understand very well the question, but it's the resident garden is a place where you spend you are in a space that you help to create, but it is like entering into time of the plants. This thinking about time and space for me came from these ancient spiritual traditions where we talk a lot about here and now. And in the practices of meditation, for instance, we humans focus a lot, and it's very easy to enter in the here, because I think that as we move, as we are moving beings, when we have to adjust to the world, we have to adjust to what is moving, or we are moving around. But for plants, I think the now is more important because they are always in the same place. So their changes come from the change of time, not from the change of place. So the important for them is the now. So when you are in a resident garden and you enter in contact with the plants, I think you start living in this different time, and you start appreciating this now. So it is like the entry to the plant's world is time, is to be and to share their time, and that's what the resident garden is trying to do, to create a space where you can share that time and space.
Yes, thank you, Gautam. And if anybody else would like to have a question, please feel free to write or stick your hand up. I'm very sorry to say that we haven't been able to record the session because there were some technical problems. So while Rachel was... You have? Wonderful. Good time. So we've got a recording. Great. We were trying to sort some technical issues out in the beginning, so that's fantastic. Okay, just coming to Rachel, if I can. What I listened to in the content of your presentation was I was quite fascinated by these what looked to be concept of continents. You mentioned the continent of Europe. I think that kind of brought into focus and questions concepts of macrocosm and microcosm, and how that is. It was really quite remarkable to see both the content, the colour, the structure of how you'd created that. And if you could speak a little bit more about that, I think that would be very interesting.
I'd love to. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen then and show you that last image of the that European continent just really quickly. Actually, again, as I was trying to make this kind of link with music, the last consonant was the wind instrument family, which is the flute. I play the flute, so I wanted to integrate that instrument into this tree ring. And the flute, actually, when you play it, different keys, when you press down on one key, it's actually linked to another key. So it kind of works as a community, just like trees and like plants. And so here, it's a bit difficult to see because there's so much going on in this one. But we can kind of see the references to the mycelium that is what helps the forest communicate together. And so that's kind of through these this system of communication, allowing the forest to grow again. And so it's also a symbol of our community coming together, that if all these people come together in harmony with each other and in harmony with nature, that slowly the trees will flourish again and can kind of take off. And behind the ring, the flutes are flying again, kind of as a symbol of as a flying forest in a way. And I just wanted to say something about time in this work. This piece alone was 4,200 hours of work. I'm not talking about the whole installation. I'm talking about this piece. Time is a very important part of my work. Really having respect for the time of nature, finding that patience, putting ourselves really in that space and becoming a plant ourselves. A piece of paper is kind of like a little seed that we're planting. And slowly we're growing these branches together with respect for the other people who are working together, but also in respect for the history of our world, thinking about where each paper came from. What tree did it come from? Who wrote these ideas? And then they all kind of disappear within this new story that's being created. But that's, again, the magic of nature. When we walk through it, we don't have access to all of that information.
Yeah, really, really very fascinating. Thank you very much. The other questions I've got are kind of combined to Christa and also Mauricio. In Christa's presentation, concept of the relationship between plants and humans, and if in the plants these strands get broken or damaged, and how they generate themselves as a way to recover and heal. It reminded me about what Mauricio was saying about ingesting plants for healing trauma. This is a very big area at the moment, a big focus in all over the world. I think these concepts of using, for example, ayahuasca, mescaline, peyote, these different kind of medicines that are available. And I just wondered whether or not, you would have any comments on, for example, if you were to spend a lot of time around a particular type of plant that had those healing powers, and to develop a relationship with it before ingesting it, how that would be in terms of, taking a trip to a mountainous area and hiking and finding some plant and harvesting it, taking it within a day or 2 days, whatever. But having spent like weeks or months around cultivating, nurturing, being around a plant, communicating with it, and then using it, as a medicine, as a medicinal purposes, how that might be, in terms of in depths of healing and interactions, and whether or not that might be something worth considering.
Do you want to start, Mauricio?
Yeah. For instance, with Gabi, the vein which is used to do ayahuasca, I spent a year and intensely 6 months visiting the vein every day and feeling it and letting it talk. So the ingestion of the beverage, it's almost unnecessary. I will say that many of the big openings of that happened to me, like the teachings of the plants, were not coming. I mean, were coming from the presence of the plant and that connection. The thing is that you need to connect and you need to be there a lot of time, because when you first come to close to a plant, at least for me, that I'm not a shaman or somebody who is very maybe they can do sooner. But for me, it takes a lot of time to enter in the cycle of a plant and let the plant talk or sense or show or So it's but I'm sure. I mean, it's like being with the plants is much more important than using the beverage. The beverage itself will be like having the medicine, like the use of products. But I think the real bond with the plants is with the living plant.
I also agree completely to what Mauricio says is, when you are gardening or have plants in your home and you take care of them, it's not so easy, because sometimes you don't understand what the plant wants or what the plant needs, or which signal it gives to you. So like Mauricio said, you have to observe, you have to be there, you have to try to understand how this plant works, what it needs. For example, just an example, here in my winter garden, I have a camellia, and it has now, since 1 year, it's making flower buds, but they never go out, and I don't really know what I should do. Maybe it just doesn't want to open them, and it's a mystery to me. I tried everything. I tried to give it some special, how you call it, like fertilizer, a little bit of fertilizer. I changed the position. I put it a bit more away from the shade. I put it in a different place. But it's so capricious. I have no idea what I should do with it. And it's almost like a kind of dance of non-verbal communication between us. And I still didn't figure out what it really wants. And this is, it's fascinating to, communicate with these beings that have their own language, and we have our language. But sometimes we just have to also accept that there are misunderstandings between us. And I don't know what your experience is, Mauricio, but sometimes I understand my plants a little, and sometimes I don't understand them at all.
Yeah, I think that the thing with the plants is that they don't communicate in the same sequence that we humans communicate. They have different times and they have different sensitivities. And for me, it has always been the plant that start the dialogue. I mean, I can be there, I can try things, but if the plant doesn't open, it doesn't open. And sometimes it's open and it's there. So I think your camellia is waiting.
Yes, the reason I asked the question was that it raised what you presented raised the question about sustainability, which was a question posed earlier, and the idea of a lot of people from the West traveling to Peru or to the Amazon for a week, 10 days to take the ayahuasca, and then paying extravagant amounts of money to do that, and then coming back and going through the process. Whereas how that's been harvested, how the vine is being harvested for this purpose, and then also I thought what you were saying, Mauricio, about just being around the vine is a medicine in itself, and how that is in terms of sustainability, that there's no need for this huge harvesting, which is, that we've got problems with sandalwood trees and the other one, there's another fragranced tree, Palo Santo, which have been very, very severely harvested for this new age kind of market. And it's the same, I think, a lot with ayahuasca, that it's now going into the marketplaces. And I thought you had a really important message to communicate there about just being in the presence of the plant itself and what that can actually mean, which people may not think about.
May I add something here? Because I mentioned Hildegard von Bingen, and I don't know if she's known in Finland, but there's a lot of traditional herbal medicine already here in the Austria-German region, where these nuns already have this wonderful knowledge about how to use plants for healing purposes, and they have very sophisticated description of these plants, what kind of purpose they have and how you can use them for different, ointments, but also as teas, and sometimes just to surround yourself with these plants. So I think there's now also more and more interest again, instead of using like medicine from the pharmacy, but to go back to these more herbal medical treatments that you can also do by yourself. And it's booming here in Austria, at least, these kind of workshops and these kind of courses.
Yes, thank you. And I think, Gautam, there's another question or two in the chat.
Should I answer to this? Yes, I asked this plant what it wants, but maybe I didn't tune in yet. Maybe if somebody can give me advice what the camellia wants.
Yeah, I was wondering whether the time is not right for the revelation just yet, Christa. Maybe it's something that will come in due course, how we are kind of anticipating things and think we may have it wrong, or we may have missed something. And as you mentioned, I think that they have this different time frame, or maybe time doesn't even exist in their realm like we understand it. But who knows? I think it's a really interesting story. Okay, so can we just have one last invitation that anybody that has got any questions or comments for our three speakers this afternoon would do so now, and then if not, then we'll bring the session to a close for this time. I can in the chat box, so people are saying thank you, and they're very grateful, very happy and inspired by the content of the presentations this afternoon. All right, so let's draw things to a close. So, of course, we're really honoured and very privileged to have your knowledge and sharing your experiences and expertise and sharing your work with us this afternoon. So thank you very much. And hopefully when Gautam has got the recording sorted out, it will be posted on the Gifts from the Sentient Forest website, and there'll be a notification, of course, by email about that. So before we do close, I wanted to also just mention that in March in 2025, we're in the process of putting together a seminar on teas called Teas from the North. So we're going to be looking at different kinds of plants that are here in the north of Fennoscandia, and we'll have different speakers who are going to talk about that. And of course, if you've subscribed to our emailing list, we'll definitely keep you informed about it when the time comes closer. And then also just to say that in our work that we've been doing with our group, with our cohort, which consists of 14 different members, in June and July of 2025, we'll be exhibiting our work in a place in Rovaniemi called Villa Vinkeli, which is a beautiful 2-story exhibition space and art studio. And if anybody's around or visiting Finland at that time, you'd be more than welcome to come and have a look at these what will be very interesting exhibitions from each of our group members. So that's all I have. I don't know whether Gautam has any closing words or anything, but yes, just to say thank you. And if Mauricio, Christa, and I know Rachel's in a rush to get off, but if you could just stay behind for 2 minutes afterwards, then we can round things up. But to the rest of our audience, thanks very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you to everyone. It was amazing to be here and to listen to the incredible speakers, co-speakers.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm so happy to discover your work and your perspectives. It's so nice to see other people who are really promoting this idea of nature and mixing biology within their work. So it's very inspiring. I'm really glad I was able to meet you both.
Same for me. Thank you so much for inviting me here. And it was great to discover your work and your writings and your experiments. And it's wonderful to have this community, and I hope it grows.
Yeah, it would be really lovely to kind of expand on this today. It's profound what you've presented in terms of both individual and collective research, and certainly it's something that we can talk further with John about for future cooperation. So, and what you've brought is, you know, in Finland there's still very much struggles between traditional orthodox medicine for treating illness, trauma particularly, and the plant medicines they're using, things like phenol, I think, not phenol, anyway, something that they use in surgical procedures to try and open up the brain to treat. And I think there's maybe something with the magic mushrooms, the mushrooms as well, that are being used to try and treat trauma. But what I got from your presentations today were just the kind of magic and abundant, the healing power that is there right at our disposal, that we need to learn much more about, you know. So thank you very much, everybody. I just wanted to close by saying that, not forgetting that if you can send me your bank details, everybody's in Europe, so we should be able to, we'll get this payment off to you for your participation this afternoon. So if you can do that within the next day or even today, then I can take care of it for you as soon as we have that information.
Really, thank you again. I feel so honored to be here and to have the opportunity to present my work. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's great to meet you, and please stay in touch.
I would love that. And again, I'm really sorry. I have so much to say about my work sometimes that I got a little bit too ahead of myself.
I could see you were going full steam ahead, so I thought I could see you pushing that.
Thank you, and I'm sorry.
No worries. It was difficult to say, oh, you've only got 1 minute left, because I could feel all this passion was coming out there as you were presenting, Rachel. So no worries. And that's why it would be great to do something a little bit broader at some point, and we'll have to we can talk a little bit more about that. So our project will run until beginning of February 2026, and then we see where we go from there. So, and also, as you know, I don't know whether Mauricio, you've had a look, and Christa and Rachel, whether you've had a chance to have a look at some of our other recorded seminars that are on the Gifts from the Sentient Forest project website, but we have two really special ones. I mean, they've all been great, but the two ones that we've done this summer is one from the indigenous Sami people that were speaking on plants and the connection between plants and culture. And then the other one was about the use of plants in the sauna, which is from the Finnish people here. Truly magical and inspirational stuff. There's songs and poems and all kinds of different things that are included in it. And you know, so I know we can sometimes feel quite alone doing this work on our own, you know, so it's really great to stay connected to everybody. And so we hope you'll stay and keep in touch with us, whatever you're doing and wherever you are.
Thank you, Francis. It's a big honor, and I look forward to stay in touch and hopefully create further projects.
Yes. Okay, great. All right, Gautam. Would you, seeing as you're recording this, would you like to bring the session to a close, or shall I do it? Okay, fine. Okay, great. All right, everybody, take care, and
thank you very
all
much.
the best from here in the north. And see you next time. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Happy
bye-bye.
New Year
Bye-bye.
to everyone.
Bye.
Bye.